Imagine a city where people can't stop dancing. Hey there, buttercups! Ever heard of a plague that makes you dance? Not just groove a little, but dance until you drop? Well, buckle up, because I'm about to tell you about the weirdest plague in history, the dancing plague of 1518. Picture this: Strasbourg, a bustling city in what is now France in the middle of summer. Sounds nice, right? Wrong. This was not your typical summer fling. It was a summer of sweat, exhaustion, and non-stop involuntary dancing. People were not just dancing for fun, they were compelled to move, their bodies seemingly taken over by an invisible force. Yeah, you heard that right, a dancing plague. Imagine strolling through the market square and seeing your neighbors flailing their limbs, their faces contorted in a mix of pain and ecstasy. Not exactly the summer block party you had signed up for, right? The craziest part? This was not some isolated incident. It was a full-blown epidemic that gripped the city for weeks. Hundreds of people were caught in this bizarre frenzy, their bodies seemingly hijacked by an unseen force. This was not some flash mob or a medieval rave gone wrong. People were dying in the streets, their bodies pushed to their absolute limits from days of relentless dancing. Imagine the stench of sweat, the sound of delirious chanting, and the constant heavy thudding of feet on cobblestones. This was the reality of the dancing plague of 1518, an event so bizarre and terrifying that it seems ripped straight from the pages of a horror novel. Meet Frau Trophäa, the lady who started it all. It all began in July 1518 with a woman named Frau Trophäa. Now, we do not know much about Frau Trophäa, but she has gone down in history for all the wrong reasons. Imagine this. It is a hot summer day, and Frau Trophäa steps out of her house. Suddenly, she starts moving, swaying her hips and tapping her feet. But this is not just a little jig. This is full-on uncontrolled dancing, the kind that would make your grandma blush. Days turn into nights, and Frau Trophäa keeps dancing. She is exhausted, she is probably starving, but something won't let her stop. Her neighbors are concerned, but what can they do? This is 1518, long before TikTok dances and viral challenges. People are superstitious. They believe in curses and demonic possession. Then, the unthinkable happens. Frau Trophäa collapses from exhaustion. You would think that would be the end of it, right? Nope. She wakes up the next day and starts dancing again. Word of the dancing woman spreads like wildfire through Strasbourg's narrow, winding streets. People whisper in hushed tones, wondering what evil has befallen poor Frau Trophäa. Now here is where things get really freaky. Within days, others start to join Frau Trophäa's frantic dance. It is like a scene from a horror movie, except it's all too real. Imagine a group of people dancing uncontrollably in the town square, their movements growing more erratic by the day. First, it is a handful, then dozens, and eventually hundreds are swept up in the madness. Imagine the fear that must have gripped the city. Your friends, your family, even strangers on the street suddenly compelled to dance with a manic energy. People are dropping from exhaustion, suffering heart attacks, and yet the dancing continues. It is a macabre waltz with death, and no one knows how to stop the music. What caused this bizarre phenomenon? Was it mass hysteria, a strange form of food poisoning, or something even more sinister? The people of Strasbourg had no answers, only fear and a growing sense of dread. The dancing plague was not just a medical mystery, it was a social crisis, tearing at the very fabric of their lives. The Authorities Waltz In, how Strasbourg tried to handle the dancing epidemic. So what do you do when your city is hit with a dancing plague? If you are the authorities in 16th century Strasbourg, you do what any logical person would do. You hire a band. No, seriously. Initially, the city officials thought the best way to cure the dancing plague was to encourage it. They figured if people just danced it out, they would eventually get tired and stop. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. They even built a stage and hired musicians, thinking it would help organize the chaos and maybe even lift people's spirits. It was like a city-sponsored rave, except instead of glow sticks and techno music, it was lute music and the grim spectre of death. It did not take long for the authorities to realize that their plan had backfired spectacularly. Instead of subsiding, the dancing intensified, fueled by the constant rhythm and the sheer terror of the situation. Eventually, the city officials switched tactics. They banned dancing in public and tried to restore order through religious processions and prayers. They even went as far as taking some of the afflicted to a shrine dedicated to St. Vitus, the patron saint of ironically dancing. Unfortunately, none of their efforts seemed to work. The dancing plague continued, a gruesome testament to the limitations of 16th century medicine and the sheer bizarreness of the situation. A city under stress. What was happening in Strasbourg that could cause this? To understand the dancing plague, we need to look at the bigger picture. Strasbourg in 1518 was not exactly a party town. Life in the 16th century was tough, especially for ordinary people. Imagine living in constant fear of famine, disease, and war. Add to that the stifling social constraints and the ever-present threat of religious persecution, and you have got a recipe for mass anxiety. The years leading up to the dancing plague were particularly harsh. Strasbourg was in the grip of a severe economic downturn. Crops had failed, food prices were skyrocketing, and people were struggling to survive. To make matters worse, a series of harsh winters had left the population vulnerable to disease and starvation. In these conditions, it is no wonder that people were on edge. The dancing plague, as bizarre as it was, could be seen as a manifestation of the collective stress and anxiety that permeated Strasbourg society. Imagine the psychological toll of living through such hardship. People were desperate, looking for answers, for someone or something to blame for their misfortune. In this context, the dancing plague, with its eerie resemblance to religious rituals and its association with St. Vitus, took on a sinister meaning. Solving the mystery. Modern theories try to explain the unexplainable. So what really caused the dancing plague? Sadly, we still do not have a definitive answer. It is a 500-year-old medical mystery that continues to baffle experts. Some historians believe it was a case of mass psychogenic illness, also known as mass hysteria. Imagine the power of suggestion, amplified by fear and desperation, sweeping through a community already on the brink. Others theorize that the dancers might have ingested ergot, a fungus that can grow on rye bread and cause hallucinations and convulsions. Ergotism, however, is also known to cause gangrene and restricted blood flow, which doesn't quite fit with the descriptions of the dancers' energetic movements. Another theory suggests that the dancing plague was a form of religious ecstasy, a way for people to cope with the hardships of their lives by surrendering to a higher power. Whatever the cause, the dancing plague stands as a chilling reminder of the power of the human mind, the fragility of social order, and the mysteries that still lurk in the shadows of history. Dancing into the history books, the legacy of the dancing plague. The dancing plague of 1518 might seem like a bizarre footnote in history, but it is a story that continues to fascinate and horrify us centuries later. It is a reminder that even in our modern age, with all our scientific advancements, there are still things we can't fully explain. The dancing plague serves as a stark reminder of the power of the human mind, both its resilience and its capacity for strange and unpredictable behavior. It is a story that continues to be told and retold, inspiring books, films, and countless theories. It is a story that reminds us that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. And it is a story that makes you think twice about complaining about having to dance at a wedding.
Thank you for watching. Hope you found this video informative and entertaining. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. We do like to know and hear your feedback. And if you have the means, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can get early access to our videos, and where we post bonus material. Till next time, this is Geeky Tidbits saying cheers and have a good day.